Hey everyone, it's Egwin again. Today I want to share with you a very small exercise that is designed to mobilize your hip joints and your pelvic region. Now most of you have probably seen this exercise somewhere before, maybe even done it, but I want to give you some more intricacies on how to actually activate your body to get the most benefit out of this simple exercise. Let's get started right away. Bring your feet, the inside edges of your feet, parallel to each other, roughly hip wide apart. So that's the basic stance that we want to have throughout this whole exercise. Then make sure that your body is as straight and as aligned as possible. So if you know, you sort of hang to the front, or you have a very intense bend down here in your lumbar spine or something like that, don't really force yourself into any position that's uncomfortable for you, but try to stand as upright and relaxed as possible. Now from this on, what we want to do, I show you the exercise first, is very simple. We want our hip joints to move and open to the front and to the rear. So to the front and to the rear. So basically we shift our hip front and back. And that's almost half of the exercise already. Now there are some things to be aware of. First of all, where are your hip joints? Your hip joints are exactly in the middle of your groin. So this is your groin, left and right, and your hip joints are actually located in here. So some people sometimes search the hip joints somewhere up here where they feel the hip bones, or out here where they feel the major trochanter from the femur, but that's not the hip joint, that's just parts that surround the actual joint. The actual hip joint is located in here, left and right, roughly in the middle of your groin. And that's the area you want to go to the front and you want to bend back. Now those are the parts that we move front and back, and the main intent is to open the joint to the front and to open the joint to the rear. So instead of I push my buttocks to the front and I push my buttocks backwards, instead of focusing on the pushing action, try in your mind, with your awareness, with your consciousness, try to actually focus on, I try to open my hip joint to the front and I open my hip joint to the rear. Open it to the front and open it to the rear. So that's the main focus that you want in your mind. Don't think of, gonna contract my buttocks and push myself forward. Because whenever we focus on the direction we want a joint to open, then the natural intelligence of the body kicks in and uses the exact muscles necessary for this movement to be performed at peak efficiency. So when we give our hip joints the impulse, the idea, we want them to open up to the front. Obviously they are spheres inside there, but still the pressure in front of the joint releases, it diminishes once we open it to the front, and the pressure tightness of structures behind the hip joint increases, and we have sort of a pressure back here and an opening aspect in front. That's why I say opening and closing. Obviously it's not opening and closing like a door. But anyway, so we want to focus on opening the hip joints to the front and opening the hip joints to the rear. The focus is always on the opening aspect. Another very important part, don't do the exercise too fast. So going here and performing this exercise really fast messes up your whole body structure. Sort of, at the beginning, if you're not used to it, go in some strange wave-like motions. So make sure to be very conscious, very aware of the movement. Open your hips to the front gently come back to the middle, be aware of every stage of the movement. Then open the hips to the rear. So now we have the opening aspect back here in our buttocks. Then come back in the middle, and then once again open the hips to the front. You don't have to use your arms. The best thing to do with your arms in this exercise is actually to have them just simply hang down on the left and on the right side of your body, like so. And whenever you bring your hip to the front, just keep your arms in your shoulder joints as relaxed as possible if you still have mental resources to direct that. So if you can, leave your arms simply hanging left and right of your body, open your hips to the front, come back to the middle, open your hips to the rear. Now you see, the arms actually hang out of the shoulder like a pendulum would, where you move the frame rather than weight on the pendulum. So we don't want our arms to go with the motion like that, because now it's a stiffness in the shoulders that holds our arm in place. If I relax my shoulder, the arm will naturally drop down, directed to the gravitational center of the earth. And that's what we want. We want all the body structures as relaxed and loose as possible while we perform this movement, because the main target, the main focus is on recoordinating and mobilizing the hip joint. And that's, again, if you have resources to think about your shoulders, try to leave them completely relaxed. If you find out, whoa, this stresses me out completely, I have enough on my mind just by simply trying to think of or intend the opening of the hip joint to the front or to the rear, then just do with your hands whatever is comfortable, don't think about them, focus on your hip joints. If you have the resources, make sure that the arms are loose. Now there is one more thing you really have to be careful about, and that's your knee joints. When I'm in this position and I bring my pelvis back, so I open the hips to the rear, it's easy to keep the leg in a straight line. Don't overextend the knee, don't bend it backwards, but keep the leg straight. The only thing you have to be careful with is when you bring your hip to the front, because now it's rather easy to get this bend in your knee. But notice, when you move your hip to the front and you bend your knees, there is no motion in your hip joint, because your leg, your upper leg, your thigh area and your body, they're in a straight line, and the only thing that is moved to the front are your knees. That's not what you want. So what we want is straight legs throughout the whole movement. Straight legs when I bring the pelvis back, middle and to the front. Now obviously I can bring my pelvis back a lot further than I can bring it to the front. That's an anatomical basis. So my legs are built in such a way that I can bend forward or bend the leg towards the chest, which would resemble the same movement. The leg is built for that, but the leg is not built to be moved backwards that far. So because of that, the movement to the front will naturally be a little smaller than the movement to the rear. Bring the hips to the front, middle, and bring them to the rear, and middle. In both directions, my knees are straight. It's the only thing you have to be careful with concerning your legs. The other thing is your lower back area. Make sure that you don't bend your lower back, your lumbar spine, too much in this movement. So make sure not to do anything like that, or any like collapsing with your thoracic spine, as well as don't bend your lumbar spine when you bring your hip to the rear. Make sure that your torso is also as aligned as possible, and it keeps that way. So basically the movement is as if your whole body only had one joint, and this one joint is your hip joint. It's like that. Back, middle, front, middle. Back, middle, front, middle. And the rest of your body, your upper body and your lower body, meaning your legs, they are straight. So the movement actually looks like that, like this, middle, front, middle, rear, middle, front, middle. If you want to make sure that there is no movement in your torso, that's why I had my arms here before, to show you that this area should be stable. Then you can place one arm on the front and one arm in the back of your body, of your belly, and back here behind your pelvis. And you can move to the front, middle, and move to the rear, middle, move to the front, middle, move to the rear, middle. And always make sure that your spine is as aligned as possible. Obviously, if you use your arms, then change sides, because otherwise you have this strange twist in your body. So the perfect version would be with your arms just simply hanging down on either side. And the movement goes directly to the front, middle, and to the rear, so there is no side motion in it whatsoever. And again, the focus is on where you open the joint. Bring it to the front means I open my hip joints to the front, bring it to the rear, I open my hip joints to the rear. So that's very, very important here. The same exercise can be done left and right. So from this position, move your hips to the left, center, and to the right. Position of my feet is exactly the same, so the inside edges are parallel towards each other. The legs are roughly hip wide apart. The only thing that I change right now, instead of moving front and back, I move exactly to the left and exactly to the right. Now this obviously opens my hip joints differently, the left one and the right one. So when I move to the left, obviously the left hip joint is now rather open to the side, and the right hip joint is open on the inside of my thigh, on the inside here of my groin area. Now when I move to the middle, they're both equal. And when I move to the other side, now my right hip joint is obviously opened to the side, and my left hip joint is opened to the inside towards the crotch area. And when I come back to the middle, I'm equal again. Again, don't bend your knee. When I come to the side, don't bend one of the two knees. Make sure that both knees are straight, and you move your hip to the left and to the right. And again, the focus is on where you want the joints to open. That's the most important thing you have to remember. The exercise is simple. Yeah? Many people probably do this exercise just for warming up purposes. But the main thing with such simple exercises lies in the details. How do you perform them in order to tell the muscles how to coordinate properly in order to regain mobility in your hip joint, flexibility in your hip joint. And that's what we want with this movement. So again, in this position, just simply open both hips to the right side. The one on the left one on the inside, the right one on the outside. So that's your focus. Come back in the middle and then open them to the other side and middle. Open them to the right, middle, open them to the left. And once again, the rest of the body is like that. You open them to the left, you come back to the middle, you open them to the right, you come back to the middle. And not something like that or like that, meaning You don't go like so. Your whole body is straight. You bring your hips to the side. Your head is still above your toes. You come back to the middle and you do it on the other side. Your head is still above the toes and your hip moved to the side and back in the middle. Left, middle, right. And that's the same with moving front and back. Your head roughly always stays above your feet, whereas your pelvis moves to the front and to the rear. Last thing, you can combine the front back and the left right movement in a big circle. So from here you start, say, with your hips in front. Then move your hips to the left, move your hips to the rear, move your hips to the right, move your hips to the front. Open on the right side, open in the rear, open left, open front, open right, open rear, open left, and open front. And that's how you make a circle. Most important thing for your training, remember to start with these exercises slowly. So slowly also means give yourself time in terms of how big the movement becomes. Start with a small, slow movement. Get to know the tensional differences between your left and your right side. Nobody, and I mean literally, absolutely nobody, is completely equal tension-wise on both sides of his or her body. This is also a very good exercise to become aware of what is actually going on in your body, to create this consciousness, this conscious aware connection to what your body is telling you. Because the neurological impulses that tell you whether or not there is more tension on the right or on the left side, those neurological impulses, they get sent back to the brain. It's only a matter of being aware of them and making them aware, making them conscious in your perception. And if as soon as that is here, as soon as you can do that, you can perceive that, then you can specifically work on areas that are tighter than others. Especially when you do the circle. Move very slowly. Move very slowly and start with a rather small circle. It's very important because with the circular motion, sometimes you might feel as if a very tight string of muscle or a tendon or something like that, like pops over some bone or something like that. As long as that happens, you know there is somewhere in my muscles too much tension. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any of this snapping aspect in my joint area. And as soon as you feel that, or if you, for whatever reason, feel, whoa, okay, when I move back here, now it starts to be painful in a certain area, never go over your pain. Always go towards your pain. If you think it's okay to go over it, because it's not that painful, that's great. But if you feel like, might be a bit too much, go the other direction. Get closer to the point where it's painful from the other side. Maybe it's painful, maybe it isn't from the other side. And so you get closer from either side towards the point of maximum tension in order to release it. And that's how you use such an extremely simple exercise to actually consciously work on remobilizing your hip joints. Last thing I want to add, in our modern society we sit way too much and our hips aren't used the way they're supposed to be, because most of the time we're not on the ground. And most people, if they want to go on the ground, they do something like that. instead of fold their legs and use the big joints. And that's why it's really important to regain mobility in your hip joints, because think of it like that. Your legs are really big, so there is a lot of volume in your legs. Also concerning lymphatic fluid and blood. And that's very important, because when you sit a lot and it's very tight around the hip joints, now there are two options for the body. One option, reduce the blood flow to your leg area, which is bad for your immune system, for the muscle tension, for detoxification, and a lot of more things. Or increase the blood pressure in order to push through the narrow area. So making sure that your hip joints are open and the muscles around your hip joints are as relaxed as possible is actually one of the most important things you can do to support your vascular system and your heart health, and to support the oxygenation of your body and to support your immune system as well. Apart from the obvious benefits that moving your hips just simply really is fun and makes a lot of movement a lot more fun. Whether it's sport, moving around, rolling in the garden, even having sex with your partner. So there is a lot of things that we do with our hip joints all the time, and they are really a very central and important part of our physical body to be mobile and to be agile. That's very important for our overall health and strength. I wish you all the best. Try this exercise. If you have any questions whatsoever, make sure to leave them in the comment box or write me an email. And also check out the rest of the channel about how to walk correctly, different stretching aspects, new upcoming series right now, why alignment matters, and this is actually one of the parts where I'm right in the middle of how to realign your body. If you liked it, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and I'm happy if you subscribe. See you around soon and have a wonderful day. Till next week.